Yep.
Hi, this is Miss O'Malley from Cleveland Extended Day, the afternoon session, and this book is titled Say What, and it's by Margaret Peterson Haddix. She's written a number of famous books, some great series. I know I've seen some of you kids reading 39 Clues, Under Their Skin, the Missing series, The Shadow Children. So this was one of my favorite books to read with the kids when they were little. It's kind of funny. I thought you might enjoy it. So here we go. It's called Say What. Suki Rose Robinson was running through the living room with a big plastic tub of glitter in each hand. All right, Suki knew she was doing something wrong. She was only 6 years old, but Mom and Dad had already told her at least 10 billion times, no running in the house. This isn't a playground. And they've told her at least 5 billion times, you have to ask before you use glitter, and only at the kitchen table. But Suki wasn't trying to be bad. She was just in a hurry. She had been making tissue paper flowers in her room, and she thought of a cool way to put glitter on all the petals. She didn't have time to hunt up Mom or Dad to ask permission, or to move all her flowers to the kitchen. She had to get the glitter before she forgot her great idea. Oh no, Dad saw her. Busted. Dad was walking from the kitchen to the family room, a cup of coffee in his hands. His eyebrows went up when his eyes met Suki's. Suki tried to slow down to make it look like she'd just been strolling along no faster than a snail. She tried to hide the tubs of glitter behind her back real fast, but her shoulders were bent forward, her legs were kicked straight out. It wasn't like she could just stop. She braced herself for the usual. Suki, how many times have we told you not to run in the house? And what's that in your hands? But instead, Dad frowned at her and said, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? Huh? Confused, Suki skidded to a halt. The two tubs of glitter crashed into each other behind her back. Suki tried to hold her hand steady, but the tubs tilted and the lids slipped off. The tops of the individual shakers of glitter inside the tubs must have been loose. Suki looked over her shoulder and saw a whole waterfall of green, gold, red, and purple and orange glitter streaming down to the carpet. Suki hunched over. Now Dad was really going to yell. What do you think you're doing, young lady? He was going to say. Why do you have glitter in the living room? Do you know how long it's going to take you to clean that up? Here's a picture. But Dad didn't yell, not right away. Suki looked up at him, waiting. But Dad was taking a deep breath. Then he looked straight in the eye and said, don't pick your nose. That's a gross habit. And then he walked on into the living room, sipping his coffee. Suki hadn't been picking her nose. Who would pick their nose with their hands full of glitter? Suki stared after Dad. She dropped the tubs of glitter, and then even more spilled out onto the carpet. Suki stepped over it and peeked in at Dad in the family room. He was reading the newspaper and drinking his coffee, just like nothing had happened. Suki tiptoed back to the living room. She tugged and pulled and shoved the rocking chair over the pile of glitter on the carpet. Then she hid the glitter tubs under the couch. She didn't feel like making glitter flowers anymore. This was too weird. What was wrong with Dad? Okay, Chapter 2. Nobody said anything about glitter at dinner, but something else strange happened. They were having meatloaf and peas. Suki hated peas. Really, peas didn't taste any worse than any other vegetable, but they were too hard to eat. Her older brother Brian, who was 9, had told her, just use your spoon like a shovel. Shovel them up. But if Suki did that, one or two of the peas always escaped and rolled off her plate. And then Mom or Dad yelled at her. One time, when they'd had company, Suki had even shot a pea into Mr. Harbinger's lap. Then, when Suki started laughing, pea she hadn't swallowed yet had dropped out of her mouth, and Well, she had gotten into a lot of trouble for that one. Suki's other brother, Reed, who was 7, had given her different advice for eating peas. Just stab them right in the eye, he had said. Pretend your fork's a sword, see? And the peas are dragons you've got to kill. And you're a famous knight, and the peas kind of squeal a little when they die. Suki didn't mind playing with her food, but she just couldn't see spending her whole life stabbing one pea at a time, whether they squealed or not. Really, if Suki were in charge of the whole wide world, she'd pass a law that said peas were finger food, like potato chips or carrots, and people had to eat them with their hands. If anyone even picked up a fork or a spoon around a pea, boom, Suki would have them thrown in jail. But Suki would never be in charge of the whole wide world, not with Brian and Reed and Mom and Dad telling her what to do. Tonight, she bent down really low beside her plate and cupped her left hand so she could hide her right hand, grabbing up the peas and sticking them in her mouth. But Mom saw. Of course, Mom saw. Suki thought, it's not my fault my left hand's not big enough to hide what my right hand's doing. But Mom didn't yell, don't eat peas with your fingers. Instead, she scolded, you'll put an eye out with that thing. Huh? Suki said. In this time, she really wanted Mom to give her the whole lecture about how table manners were important and how they showed respect for the other people eating with her. And how could Mom and Dad let Suki grow up eating like she'd lived in a barn? It would almost make Suki feel good to be yelled at like that. But Mom just frowned at her the same way Dad had and said, lying is not acceptable in this household, young lady. Suki dropped her peas and scrunched down in her seat. This wasn't just weird. This was scary. This was too scary for a 6-year-old to handle all by herself. She kicked Brian under the table. She needed his help. Quit that, Brian snarled. Mom, Suki's kicking me. All right, Suki thought. Now Mom would say, Suki, quit kicking Brian. Brian, don't tattle on your sister. And if she didn't, Brian would notice, and he would say, whoa, Mom, what's wrong with you? Waste not, want not, Mom said, and took a bite of meatloaf. Brian didn't even seem to hear Mom. He just went right back to talking to Reed about how PlayStations were better than Nintendos. Mom, Suki said, do you feel okay? Sure, Mom said. Would you pass the peas, please? Well, that proved that Mom still knew how to say something that made sense, or maybe not. Who in their right mind would ask for peas? Interesting things these parents are saying, huh? Okay, chapter 3. Brian didn't see any reason why he had to have a younger sister. So, when Suki knocked on his door after dinner and yelled, Brian, let me in. I've got to talk to you. He said what he always said, go away. Every time he said that, Suki would get her feelings all hurt, and then she'd go crying to Mom or Dad, and then Mom or Dad would come and give him some big lecture about how Suki was the only sister he had, and she looked up to him, and someday when he was grown up, he'd appreciate her, blah, 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 blah. It went on forever. But it was still worth getting that lecture if it meant he could have 5 more minutes without Suki bugging him. 5 minutes was how long it usually took her to go tattle to Mom and Dad. He knew. He'd timed it. Go away, he yelled again, just in case Suki hadn't heard him. He sat down on his bed and tossed a miniature basketball at the plastic hoop he had rigged up over his door. This was a good way to work on his close angle shots, since his bed was right beside the door. No, listen, I've got to tell you something. It's important, Suki said. Important to Suki was something like, look, I braided this Barbie's hair, and the other Barbie's hair is still straight down. Don't you think the braided one looks better? Brian leaned back on his bed to catch his basketball. It bounced perfectly into his hands. He threw it again. I don't care, he yelled back at Suki. I said, go away. No, Suki said. You have to listen to me. Brian caught his basketball and threw it again. He couldn't hear Suki's footsteps retreating from his door yet. He rolled forward on his bed, unlocked the door, and poked his face out to glare at Suki. That always worked. The basketball hit him smack on the back of his head. Suki giggled. Brian glared harder, but she still didn't budge. Brian relaxed his glaring muscles. Isn't it time for you to run off and go tattle to Mom and Dad? He asked. What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with me, Suki said. Something's wrong with them. Mom and Dad, they're not acting normal. Well, sure, they're grown-ups. You can't expect grown-ups to act normal. But they're acting really, really weird. Haven't you noticed? Suki asked. She sounded scared. Brian thought for a minute. He had seen Dad outside mowing the yard that morning wearing orange and brown plaid shorts. He heard Mom talking back to some chef on TV. No, wait, how much tarragon did you use? Like she really thought the chef could hear her. No weirder than usual, Brian said, shrugging. It took a lot of talent to shrug while lying on the bed and leaning your head halfway out the door. It took even more talent to look dignified while shrugging and lying down and leaning out a door. Brian decided he'd better quit while he was ahead. He scrambled off his bed and stood up. He grabbed the doorknob. So, now you've talked to me, he said. Suki, now scram. He started to shut the door, but Suki was really quick and stuck her foot between the door and the doorframe. Brian would never have told her, but he was kind of impressed. He had never seen anybody do that before except on TV detective shows. We've got to have an all-kid meeting, Suki said. Whoa, this was serious. The last time they'd had an all-kid meeting was when their dog died. Brian narrowed his eyes. I'm the only one who can call an all-kid meeting, he said, just in case Suki was getting any big ideas. I know, Suki said. That's why I'm asking you to call one. She smiled up at him sweetly, just like she smiled at Mom and Dad when she wanted ice cream or candy, or the first choice on what ride to go on when they went to an amusement park. Mom and Dad always fell for it, but he wasn't going to, at least not without making her suffer first. What'll you give me? He asked. My allowance for the next 2 weeks, Suki said, and I'll make your bed for you every day this month. Okay, she was serious. She was even scaring Brian a little bit. All right, Brian said. Fine. Go tell Reed. I said for him to come here now. She whirled around and left so quickly he thought he'd messed up. The way she was acting, she probably would have given him her whole year's worth of allowance. Reed was getting ready for the greatest battle in the universe. On his bedroom floor, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and all his McDonald's Happy Meals nights were on one side. Cube Man, his old Fisher-Price dragon, and every action figure he had ever gotten from Burger King or Wendy's were on the other side. He was trying to figure out if some of the Burger King's guys might switch sides when suddenly Suki was there shouting right in his ear, Brian says we have to have an all-kid meeting in his room right now. Reed blinked at his little sister. You don't have to yell, he said. Yes, I do, Suki said. You didn't hear me the first 6 times. Reed shrugged. Now she sounded like Mom and Dad. They yell at him all the time. Reed, pay attention. Reed, stop daydreaming. Reed, weren't you listening? Reed figured if real life was ever interesting enough, he'd be glad to pay attention. Until then, well, what if the Wendy's action figures were the traitors instead of the Burger King ones? He started to move one gruesome-faced plastic figure to the other side of the room. Reed! Suki yelled. Okay, Reed said, reluctantly getting up. He glared sternly at Cube Man. Now, don't start fighting until I get back, you hear? He followed Suki down the hall.
Yeah, it's at 14 minutes already.
Okay, we're going to stop here. We'll pick it up at Chapter 5 next time. All right? We'll see you soon. Bye.